You don't! On your feet! Get them going!
Good evening. Good afternoon. Good morning. Whatever the case may be, welcome to Cross Examinations Live, the Reconstruction Zone. Welcome, welcome, one and all. Let's say hi to everybody who's here already. My name's Mike. I'm not a pastor, priest, rabbi, theologian, etc., etc. I'm just a guy on the internet who likes to argue about Bible stuff. And you're here for some reason to listen to me. What is buzzing my stinking thing? Getting alerts now, right as I start. Morning, Missy and Amy. You should have been here. Gosh dang it. So annoying. Stop alerting me. Tina, Joe, Justin, and Zeta. What's up, everybody here? Bright and a little bit early. Well, not really. I'm late. I'm late. This is a very important date. I'm sorry. No time to... Dude, what's up with YouTube? And Joe, that sounds fun. Markers or watercolors? Oh, what's going on? Sorry, I wasn't reading the chat. Do we want to start early on the Discord link? I don't start early. I get up and I put the link up. Talking about art, painting, what? Markers? Mike? Mike? Is there something wrong with my mic? Can you hear me? Oh, wrong mic. Audio. Oh. Test. Is that the right mic? Is that the rock? Is it the correct microphone now? Is it working? Wow, that's better. All right, fantastic. Freaking YouTube. So I went to go check my performance on yesterday's video. Do you want to see what my performance on yesterday's video is? This will blow your mind. All right, I'm gonna put this up here so you can actually zoom it in so you can see it. All right. Oh, where'd I go? Where'd I go? Present, share screen. All right, so you see here yesterday's video, right? Yesterday, Reconstruction Zone. That's the date, June 16th. June 10th. Sorry. That's all. Anyways, 257 views right here, right? Let's go check out the updated analytics. See, normally, and this happens on this channel constantly, nearly every video. Actually, I think it's just every video. My views get nuked. My views just get absolutely wiped out. They don't count. My views don't count. And it doesn't matter if they're views after the video has already finished, because I was checking yesterday, I got a certain number of views, and then I got a bunch of views after the video. And then I go to check today, and they're all gone except one little view. That's 60 minutes. Let's check the last 48 hours. See, and they're still here, right? They recognize it. The second, I got as many views after the show as I got during the view. Actually, I got more views after the show as I did during the show, and they disappear them. Let's do this. Let's try this. Let's try this with the day before yesterday's videos. 127 views, which is not a lot. How many views do I have?
4. What's going on? And it can't be the copyright thing because that's why I've been cutting out the intro, right? How many views? 18. Oh gosh, 18 on what should have been 114. 234 views on this one. Let's see. 11. I'm getting straight screwed out of all my views. What's going on with Mike's views? That's the question, Joe. Welcome, by the way. They don't like Christians. You think? I have the same problem on my channel account. I see like 50 people watching it, and then the analytics will say like 22. I don't know what to think about it. I don't know. Let's go try this on my other channel, though. Why don't we go on YouTube Studio? Let's just check it out live to see what happens on my other content. Live. All right, so here's my last live stream. May 28th. Views 390. Let's go to analytics. Views 135. Why is YouTube doing this? Views 224. Analytics 78. Why is YouTube doing this? 233. 59. They don't like Mike particularly. Apparently. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand. But I'm getting 0. Could you guys do me a favor? I know there's just a handful of you here. But could you go like put on one of my playlists? And like when you're not doing anything, you're just going to leave your phone or your computer on and just run a playlist live and just watch it and see if I can get a bunch of you guys to do this and see if my actual view hours get counted. It's very annoying. I hope that's a rum and Coke. A little early in the morning for rum and Coke. Plus, I don't like Coke. So, I mean, I like Coke, but I don't like sugary drinks. So, I'll just do rum, frankly. I'll just do straight rum. Straight rum to me is better than rum and Coke. The cross-examinations playlist. Is that? I believe I playlist all of these. Wait, am I on the wrong thing again? Details. Let me see if I'm on the playlist. If I'm I have not even selected a playlist. All right, I'm gonna put that on the playlist. Save. I think if you go to the cross-examinations playlist, it'll be a bunch of older videos because I haven't been doing that. I should do it. I should, shouldn't I? I should put this on the playlist too. Put no, it's not made for kids. Select playlist. Done. All right. I'm playing the one with 77 videos right now. That should be the cross. Yeah. Although, gosh, I don't know how many. Oops, save. Okay, cancel, save. I shouldn't be doing this while I'm streaming, but I'm not one to stick to the rules, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know why. Okay, save. All right. That's enough. Someone posted a video, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, in the Discord of the Carl Benjamin saying he's going to church now. I love it. I love it. Sargon of Assad, ladies and gentlemen, of the Lotus Eaters, is going to church now. That doesn't mean that he's a Christian. But you know who else is going to church now? Joe Rogan. You know who else started their journey by saying, you know, maybe I should go back to church. There is a movement among the atheist to agnostic red-pilled crowd. The ones who are not, you can be an atheist and it seems like you can be an atheist agnostic as long as you're not an insane leftist. Although these guys were on the left. They're on the left by default because they were atheist agnostic. But as the red pilling of the realization that all these people that they've trusted have been lying to them. I think perhaps the realization that all the stuff they heard of that's anti-Christian is also lies. And so they're moving, you know, as they go, well, I'm not going to be, I'm an agnostic now. I don't call myself an atheist anymore. I'm an agnostic. And then it's the slide to the right. And then as the more you slide to the right, the more welcoming and loving you find out that actual Christians are, like our dear sweet Amy Lester down here. You too, Melissa and Tina, and I'm just gonna name everybody. Everybody, you're all sweet and awesome, except for me. I was such a prick yesterday on the show, but I had to be. I just felt like that's how I had to address May, because May was here out of emotional hate, and I had to just call her on the bull crap, because that was the bull crap. You can't live in grief. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now, but you cannot make grief your defining quality. It will just ruin your life. And you know, you guys know how well acquainted I am with grief. But it is because we trust that all things work for good to those who love God and are called according to his purposes, that we can escape the cage of grief that we leave ourselves in. Anyways, back to it. I'm sweet and awesome too. Jeff, I was going to exclude you. But fine. They've come to realize that life fulfillment comes from Christ and his teachings. Well, they will. They are and they will. Imagine an agnostic saying, oh, yes, I'm going to start going to church. As an agnostic, that thought never crossed my mind. I wasn't a communist. I've never been a communist. I was more left wing. I had lefter policies. I didn't know May had been here before either. Yeah, she was here the day before or the day before that, just constantly going in on Jehovah. Jehovah doesn't care about any of you. You're better than Jehovah. That was our argument the day before. Oh, you don't care if you get insulted? You're better than Jehovah. Jehovah gets insulted if you take his name in vain. I'm like, eh. Anyways, yeah, these guys coming on board. You know why I think? Because you can be like agnostic. You can even call yourself an atheist as long as you're actually a truth seeker. That's what I kept saying, right? When I said this a while ago about Joe Rogan, and it's awesome seeing him move in the direction that I prognosticated. He's a seeker. He will become a Christian, I believe, because if you seek, you will find. And Joe Rogan is definitely a seeker. I think Sargon is a seeker too. And, you know, seekers don't always start out in the best place, right? Seekers start out wherever they were raised, however they were raised. Sargon will just blatantly admit, he's like, look, I was raised in an atheist England, in an atheist environment. I'm doing a terrible Sargon of Akkad. This isn't. I'm not even doing an English accent. I wonder if I can. If he speaks softer, but not quite that soft. I can't do it. I can't do it. What's up, Dark Admiral? Much hairs in the house. So I'm just. I don't know. That's a bright spot. That's a bright spot in what is otherwise a fairly rough week here. So there's my police officer, my CHP son-in-law sent me the notification of where the June 14th No King's Day. What are they calling it? They have a No King's Nationwide Day of Defiance. Right? This is an organized chaos event. This is they're going to try to rerun the summer of 2020, and it's going to start. Actually, it's already started. I heard those riots and stuff in Manhattan yesterday. Is that true, or did I think? I think it's true. All right, so this says time Saturday, June 14th, 10 a.m. Who's getting up that early? Location El Cajon, Magnolia Avenue. About this event in America, we don't put up with would-be kings. No Kings is a national day of action and mass mobilization in response to increasing authoritarian excesses and corruption from President Trump and his allies. President Trump is like the least corrupt president in modern history. Oh, man. We've watched as they've cracked down on free speech. What? Trump is like the most free speech president in modern history. Detained people for their political views. Hello, January 6th. Hello, 500 out of those people didn't even have their due process and were in prison without charges or without for 4 years without being convicted of any crimes. 4 years. 500 people were arrested for hanging out at the Capitol building. Unarmed, by the way. Not throwing rocks at police officers. We've watched threaten to deport American citizens. If they deport an American citizen, it's obviously by accident. There's no such thing as a perfect system. I grant you. There are, I hate to tell you all this, there are innocent people in prison right now. Believe it or not. Believe it or not. And defied the courts. Well, the courts are overreaching their jurisdiction. They've done all while continuing to serve and enrich their billionaire allies. I'm fairly certain Elon Musk is losing money from all of this. And honestly, I don't know how many other billionaire allies Trump actually has. My camera is acting. Fugazi. Let's go. Come on. Hey, oh. That's better. I can blow my nose. On Saturday, June 14th, we're taking to the streets nationwide. We're not gathering to feed his ego. We're building a movement that leaves him behind. Is that a threat? The flag doesn't belong to the Trump administration. Well, I don't see any of you guys waving it. I see you guys waving the Mexican flag. And I guarantee you on Saturday, we'll see lots of Mexican flags. That's interesting. And oh, did you hear the president of Mexico is threatening to send troops to America? to legitimize this as an actual invasion. Interesting, isn't it? We're not watching history happen. We're making it. On June 14th, we're showing up everywhere he isn't. That's pretty much the whole planet. Trump can only be in one place at one time. To say no thrones, no crowns, no kings. Check out No Kings for more information. Mexico wants to invade. Yes, apparently Mexico wants to invade. Boy, I don't feel great about being 20 minutes from the border anymore. Ramses number 1, he knows the secrets of desire.
Ramses number 1, he knows the secrets of desire. Ramses is the one, he puts the people all on fire.
Yeah, well, bring them on. We welcome you, Mexico. Last thing they do that day. Yep, I'm triggered. Yeah. Well, at least between them and me, at least border-wise, there's is it Imperial? Imperial Beach. There's a Navy station. There's a Navy station on the coast between them and me. And then we've got Miramar Naval Base about 20 minutes north of me. And then we've got what's it called? We've got a big training station out. They own so much land. Holy cow. It's like a 20-minute drive, 20-minute, half an hour drive. Pendleton. Camp Pendleton. They have Camp Pendleton, which is we've got 3 military bases. Oh, and then we've got 29 Palms, which is about an hour east of me. We've got 4 huge. Just let me put it this way. If Mexico wants to invade, San Diego would be the wrong county to invade. And you got to get through San Diego to get to LA. So good luck with that, Mexico. Digital Gnosis, welcome. He says, I'm here for the cross examinations. It's not a call-in show. You can give me your arguments in the chat, though. Apostate prophet just went from atheist to agnostic, now becoming Eastern Orthodox. Who's apostate prophet? It's another one? And you complain about my impersonations. Well, it depends on the impersonation. I've never tried to do Sargon before. Sorry. You have to hear somebody talking in an English accent, Mike. Then I bet you could do it. No, I think it's the tone of his voice. It's rather different than what I can do. So, he has some mail in a band. Woot! I know, right? Have you seen the video from CBN about the shroud and cap? It's very informative and interesting. I have not. What about it? But do you mean the napkin that covered Christ's face, where that was in like a totally different part of the world? That like obviously had the same source because the blood stains on the napkin match like exactly the blood stains on the shroud. How about the Emperor Mike? Oh, it sucks to be me then. I thought that was terrifying. And so wait, I don't know. If you're heading to Heroes Con this weekend? No, it's the 19th, right? Wait, today's Wednesday. Yeah, it's next weekend. Yeah, I'm just that's what I'm worried about. It's like, bro, there better not be like this kind of crap. I have to deal with this. Elon lost 150 billion, I think. I wouldn't doubt it. The Shroud of Turin. Also, I'll have an English accent. Okay, I'm going to do my own call-in show in 5 minutes, and then you can call in there if you like. Well, I don't do a call-in show, and I don't call in other shows. Do you have a question? Apostate Prophet is an ex-Muslim that streams with Christian David Wood and attacks Islam. Good. Oh, I think I may have seen him on David Wood's Shroud of Turin. You're talking about? No. There's the Shroud of Turin, and then there's Gnosis knows it. The Shroud of Oviedo. There's no way of testing if it's the same blood. Haim is also present in pigment used to color the shroud in medieval period. My questions are unfortunately only askable verbally. Is it a very, very long question then, is it? What do you think, guys? Should I just drop the link and say, let's have a conversation then? That sounds like fun. We'll do that today. Just for you, Digital. How do I share the link? I'm an idiot. Invite. Copy. All right. Please don't flash your penis. Yes, have the conversation, but in a posh accent. I can't do that. Don't worry, I don't have a penis. Welcome, Nate.
How are you doing? You right?
I'm doing well. Good to meet you. What's up, buddy?
Not much. I just thought maybe I could, if I came in and talked about cross-examinations, then I wouldn't have to hear more Trump stuff. So it's for the greater good that I'm doing this.
All right. Well, that wasn't the Trump stuff. That was the No King's Day thing. My son-in-law is a highway patrol, so he actually almost got called up to L.A. I'm in San Diego. I don't know how familiar you are.
Yeah. I roughly know the geography of the area, but I couldn't.
We're like 2 hours from LA, and like a bunch of his coworkers got called up there. So it's like, it's crazy. They're trying to freaking. Have you seen what they're doing? Just like chucking hunks of concrete at cops. Like one of the cops, I think he got hit in the head with a chunk of concrete. It's like, that's attempted murder. This is getting crazy.
Yeah,
but it's not.
I think it's possible to point fingers in both directions, and neither. This is not me saying that
it just needs to
process,
chill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just needs to chill. All right, common ground there. So who are you, and why are you on my show?
I'm Nathan. I'm here because I pestered you in the chat, and I guess I'm open to being cross-examined. That's what I thought that this was about. Like you like cross-examined is like you cross-examine people's beliefs or something, or they cross-examine your beliefs. I'm open to either way. I don't really.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting title. It was really just sort of a not double entendre, but whatever it was like we're examining the cross. Way back it started more as a Bible study, but I love apologetics and I love discussing stuff. So
I hate apologetics. So
all right. Well, what do you got then? Let's. I don't have a particular topic right now, but it's a palindrome, says Jeff. Jeff is my the pain in my ass. So hopefully he can harass you instead of me. No. What did you have any thoughts on anything I said? Or I know I don't have a topic. This isn't like one of those. I don't do the TikTok thing. So
yeah, don't worry. I mean, I'm relatively happy to talk about anything. I mean, personally, I actually don't think that there are any either successful proofs for God's existence, or even even sound arguments for God's existence. And I don't think that the evidential case for the resurrection is particularly good. So in terms of like rationalistic grounds, right? Those are typically the way that people are approaching sort of like rationally justifying belief. I think people can be Christians and rational. I wouldn't make the claim that it's irrational to be a Christian or something like that. But I don't think that belief in God is sort of properly considered as the upshot of some kind of rational consideration, like the sciences or something like that.
Are you? What is your position? Are
It
you
depends.
an
It depends
materialist
on who I'm talking.
atheist? Are you an agnostic? Are you?
I tend not to think that materialism and physicalism are good, have any real content to them besides distinguishing like metaphysical views from something like theism, say, where you're kind of saying like everything plus, you know, a supernatural realm or something like that.
Okay, so what is your position on metaphysical act, like what I'd call metaphysical activity, things that don't follow with that, you know, like deja vu, for a very simple example, right? Deja vu, or the sense that someone's staring at you and you're like, oh, turn around and that person's staring at you. You know what I'm saying? That's just things that can't be explained via purely physical content.
Yeah.
However you want to phrase it.
I think I would think they can be explained via physical explanations, or if not physical explanations, psychological explanations, right? And then, you know, you have a further question of how does psychology fit into your picture of reality? Does it, you know, need some kind of grounding explanation that requires theism or souls or something like that? I mean, I don't think it does, but you know, I would still. I'd say that there are psychological explanations which are natural explanations, and you know, those that explain those sorts of things.
All right, so like perhaps the old we've only tapped into 5% of our brain's power argument. That kind of thing.
Didn't MythBusters do that? No, yeah,
I have no idea.
I mean, I think deja vu is it's not something I've studied in any particular depth, but you know, I'm pretty sure it's something to do with a kind of like memory issue, right? Like, or maybe even an affective issue. So as in, you know, you have this feeling that, you know, you've been somewhere before, but having a feeling that you've been somewhere before doesn't mean you actually have like lived that before, right? It's just a kind of, this is going to be like incautious language, but like a kind of malfunctioning of, you know, the human
a glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They've made a change in the Matrix. Is what
I don't know. I've had deja vus where I knew what was about to happen, just like for a moment, and it's like it wasn't just a feeling. It was like, oh, I've done this, and this is, you know, I guess it depends on how strong your deja vu is, but you know, maybe not everybody has done that. But what have you ever studied near-death experiences?
Yeah, quite a bit actually, and I'm not a big fan of their ability to be explained by anything supernatural. And I think that, you know,
okay,
yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
because I know there's categories. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to clarify, because I think I see where you're going. I don't put as far as evidentiary experiences, I wouldn't qualify I went to heaven and I saw Jesus. Yeah. I went to hell and I was hit by pitchforks. Whatever. That stuff, it's like nobody can prove or dispute. But you do have the NDEs where the person who is legitimately dead on the table is listening to conversations in another room. How do you qualify those?
I think that they're not doing that. I think that there are reports of experiences after the fact, right? And that's what we have to explain or account for. So, you know, the most compelling case, I would say, is this case of Pam Reynolds. So she had, I believe, a stroke, an aneurysm in her brain that they were operating on. So they drained blood from her brain, and it means that there's kind of like there's fairly good like medical records, right, of exactly like when she should have been like technically dead and when she shouldn't have been able to have any experiences if her experiences are caused by the functioning of her brain and stuff. And in that case, what we have to explain are these sorts of reports that she produces after the fact of what happened. So she'll recall stuff like the music, for example, that was playing. I think it's like what's that song? Hotel California. No, it's quite an eerie song, right? So it's a Hotel California, and you know, like some details of things that were said, or the colors of the clothes that were worn by the people operating and stuff. And you know, the question is, can you explain how someone can produce those reports without them being maybe it's how do you explain that overall, right? So can you explain it without them being actually dead, or even can them being dead and then being a non-physical soul explain it, right? Because suppose that your hypothesis to explain it is that they're a soul. Well, like, why are they having visual perception at a single point in space-time, for example, right? Like, does that make sense with the kind of like soul theory? I mean, I don't really know.
Well,
what the soul
I don't think
theory
a
says.
soul would be omniscient or omnipresent. It's not God. You don't become God.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, if it's experiencing, as we've visually or audibly perceive things, say, like right now, right, from a certain location with a perspective,
Right.
If the theory is that the soul becomes disembodied, right, and the person's having these experiences from a different location, I mean, what explains that on the soul theory, right? Because typically people who believe in the soul will say, well, it's your eyes that receive light, right, and it's your nerves and sensations, but the soul sort of maybe interacts with the brain somehow, or but not, they don't.
I sort of
typically
think it is the body's just hardware.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, what is,
Can the software run without the hardware?
Yeah, or even what does that mean, right? Like what are the eyes doing, for example, if the soul can see without having eyes or something, like those.
Right. Okay,
that's
so
what I
this
mean by
particular example that you're talking about is just in that room, but you said you've extensively studied. There are reports of people, souls going to other rooms in the hospital. Or
you have to be careful with your retelling, though, as well. You have, because if you say there are examples of souls going to other rooms.
Oh yeah, however you want out of body experience. Yeah.
Well, well, even to say out of body experience is an explanation. So that the data that we have to explain is the report, right? So someone reports having an experience of being in another room or something, and that's what you have to explain: is how can someone come to either have this experience or believe they've had this experience. And I think that when you put the kind of data on the table in a theory neutral way, it becomes much clearer about how you explain it. I mean, even in sort of what you're saying there about like a soul goes to another room, these sorts of retellings cause like memory corruption in people who have had like weird experiences, say at the surgery table or something. If as they these aspects of memory, particularly say around like traumatic events, say like 9/11, for example, they've been quite extensively studied, and people's memories can become very easily corrupted and contaminated by like recall or by like theory-laden language being introduced to explain the experiences that they've had, which like biases the way that they then later recall those memories and things. And I think that this is kind of just what goes on in these cases. Like people have weird experiences, and then maybe they kind of like seek something out, and there's kind of these narrative tropes around NDEs and OBEs that then people start to reinterpret their memories and experiences through the lens of, so they introduce this theory-laden language into it. And that's one of the mechanisms by which you get these explanations, right, that make appeal to all sorts of entities and things like that.
Is what does the motivation of requiring a physical, is there a motivation behind requiring a physical explanation of what on the surface is very clearly a metaphysical event? Is it just to deny that there can be metaphysical events?
I don't think so. I mean, look, I'm someone who's very skeptical of metaphysics more generally, but I think that the reason that I am is quite principled, and it's because I think that most metaphysical theories are sort of confused and underspecified, poorly motivated. And so I don't think like it's sort of that I'm motivated by the denial of metaphysics, because I spent a very long period of my life sort of exploring these options and being very interested in metaphysics, right, to come to a position where I thought that metaphysical explanations aren't particularly good. I think that what it is that there's a few things that you want to do. You want to have an explanation that can actually explain all the data, right, in the first place. And that is kind of minimally, in terms of the new sorts of commitments it forces you to make to either entities or types of things and stuff like that, that it's minimal in terms of those new sorts of commitments. So then I think that if your explanation is also more consistent with like established background knowledge, so particularly like well-established background knowledge. So there are lots of problems with sort of theories in psychology, right? But if it's one of those parts of psychology that isn't kind of problematic, right, then you've got a very good reason. If that explanation fits what's going on in this case, you've got a very good reason to go with that, say, rather than introducing something new, because it seems like then it's probably going to be a product of this more universal sort of psychological phenomena in humans, rather than, like in this case, it wasn't that, even though that would explain it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm just also, so my background, I was raised agnostic, and when I started, I was really into Art Bell and like listening to all that stuff.
Oh
about
yeah.
stuff, right?
yeah.
And when I started studying near-death experiences, I mean, as an agnostic, I wasn't a materialist atheist, right? I was just like, I don't know. I don't think you can know. It's not that important to me. That was my position on God. So it wasn't that. It was like, I didn't have a dog in the fight, essentially. And to me, the near-death experience stuff, it was compelling, right? And also, how do you explain the CIA funding research on remote viewing for 20 years, right? It's like, if there's not something there, the CIA probably wouldn't have spent millions of dollars on this. I think the Russian government also was funding remote viewing. And so if there's something, these things were so interesting to me. And maybe it's because I grew up watching Star Trek and I'm a science fiction nerd and all that kind of stuff. But that it's possible that these things that were so, we'll just call them abnormal rather than metaphysical, or so abnormal, exist in the world, are testified to by people who, honestly, what's your motivation for dying on the bed and then coming out and then making up a story to make people believe that, I had a friend who was dead for a while. He just said it was nothing. It was darkness. But
there's been a miracle or a demonic activity. I don't know what's happened. I'm sure I'll be back. Or maybe it's that'd be crazy if
okay, that was weird.
What
the heck was that?
I said there's been a miracle. The rapture happened.
Yeah. So to me, it's like like I mentioned, asked you before, what's the motivation, and then I said I didn't have a dog in the fight, and that's kind of the way I see a lot of these things. It's like, if you don't have a dog in the fight, you're much better at seeing the evidence for what it is, rather than, like, you keep using the word explain. It's like, I don't believe this thing, therefore how do I explain it, right? Whereas where you come at things agnostically, you're like, let's look at this evidence and see where it falls. And to me, it fell on, there are abnormal things in this world. There are metaphysical things by definition in this world. And that just sort of led me down the primrose path to, ultimately one day I said a prayer and it was answered in like 20 seconds. And I was like, well, okay, what's going on with this? And so I did it again, and it happened again, like 20 seconds. And it's like, that doesn't happen to me regularly, but I just felt like, okay, maybe there's something to this Bible stuff, right? Maybe there's something to this Jesus thing. And so I started researching all of what, prior to, I thought were just ridiculous claims about the Bible. It's like prophecy, medical foreknowledge, all this kind of crap that, if you've got a dog in the fight, you're like, well, how do we explain all that, right? Rather than let's look into it and see where the evidence leads. You're seeking truth. That's why earlier on I was saying, that's why I know Joe Rogan is going to become a Christian. Sargon's probably going to become, because they're seeking the truth.
Wow.
Once you move out of atheist and you're saying there is no God, I won't believe there's a God, and you say, I don't know, let's see where the evidence takes us. I mean, I firmly believe that if you seek, you will find. And if you just want to close yourself off to the possibility of the metaphysical just at the start, then I think you're closing yourself off to seeking truth instead of explaining what doesn't fit into your, what you believe is ontologically true, whatever, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I think I reckon I'm not sort of beginning with a conclusion and then kind of working back, right? I think that's definitely not what's going on. Like, I'm very open to the idea that different explanations than the ones that I think are best would be better than the ones that I land on. I'm a big proponent of people saying, I don't know, if they don't have like a good explanation of something.
Agnostic.
Yeah,
Right?
really kind of happy with that. And this is also actually where I think sometimes for a lot of the sort of psi phenomena or like out of body experiences, near death experiences, that it's often the case that I think I don't know is better than what is on the table, because it's sort of like that question that I asked you about the soul and seeing at a point, is that it's not clear to me that there is actually an explanation, right? Like, people introduce these sort of nouns like, what explains these exorcism reports? Well, it's like the activity of demons or something, right? And it's like, but how is that an explanation, right? Like, how, like, what is the actual contents?
Yeah, no, that was an interesting question, because it's not something I've ever actually considered before.
Yeah.
But have you ever? And this is a crazy one that I just stumbled on recently. Have you ever heard of the telepathy tapes?
No, I don't think so. Is this a CIA thing again, or a different?
No, this is a really weird thing, and you could take it with a grain of salt. I take it with a little grain of salt, but it's either a psyop or something that they just found some really remarkable unknown actors to play all these parts. But it's this lady, she started. I'm trying to remember how it all started, but how did it all start? I'd have to go back and listen to them again. But these non-verbal autistic kids end up being able to telepathically talk to each other. And they didn't discover this because, like, these nonverbal kids, they've all been stuck in schools like they're freaking retarded or something, and they're not, right? They're like, bodies will not communicate, right? And so they have these very, like, tics and stuff that they're just always doing stuff like this. And one of the things that the parents or the overseers of these kids have been doing is they've been giving them like a big board with letters on it, and they'll just, like, super slow, because it's really hard, they'll type out what they're saying, and what they're saying is as perfectly intelligent as what you and I are saying, right? But they're just, like, locked in because their brains and their bodies just won't work together. And ultimately, like, some of them are like, one of them's like, Nathan's my best friend, he lives in Dallas, and this kid lives in, like, Nashville. And then they find out there's this other autistic kid in Dallas who is doing the same thing, and they're going, and I know this all sounds crazy, and I said take it with a grain of salt, but they say they go to a place in what comic book nerds would say is the astral plane, right? It's some other dimensional location where they can access, and they, like, talk to each other, and there's a whole freaking network of these nonverbal kids who can talk to each other, and I know how crazy it sounds. Trust me, I know as I'm saying it, I know it sounds crazy as I'm listening to it. I know it sounds crazy, but again, it's either just a fantastic psyop, or they found just, and they found just these remarkable actors. But it's just another one of those things. It's like, there's something more to this than this, and unless it's all a psyop.
It could be unconsidered alternatives sometimes, I think, is sometimes I say, and I think this is a realization in the sort of theory comparison thing, is like, say there where you've introduced, like, say, an astral plane and telepathy and stuff. It's kind of like, if there's very little if it's a very ad hoc theory, right? And what an ad hoc theory is like one that basically just restates what the thing is it's supposed to explain. So think, I don't know, you're rolling a dice and you're like, what explains the dice rolls, right? And you're like, well, it's the desires of Zeus or something. And it's like, look, you roll a 6, you go, well, why did I roll a 6? Well, Zeus desired 6 that time, right? And then you roll a 3 and you go, well, why did I roll a 3? Well, Zeus desired 3 that time. You don't really have
very Tolstoy-esque explanation.
Yeah, in that sort of case, you don't have a sort of explanation. You have the thing you were trying to explain, like the dice rolling the way that it does. And then you
Right.
kind of dress that up in some additional language, but you've not kind of produced a deeper theory that predicts the next roll or tells you why one roll happens rather than another. It just tells you whatever happens, right? And I think some of these theories, perhaps the astral plane theory, for example, can be kind of like that, where it's not kind of giving you predictions of, well, which kids is it that, out of like a random population or something, which kids are going to produce these telepathic powers rather than others? Will be the ones that produce them, or why, what sorts of messages get sent and how do they get sent? And, I think there's not sort of a lot of answers there, or maybe it feels satisfying because there's something more being said, but it's not kind of like attaching to the phenomena that it wants to explain. And I think in those sorts of cases, it's sometimes better to just say, well, I think it's much better for a number of reasons to maybe say there's something here that we don't know, either a confound that we might just not have come across, or maybe there's like a natural explanation that we're unaware of that isn't telepathy. It's not even clear if telepathy is a sort of rival option, because it's not clear what the theory of telepathy is kind of like saying, right? And so yeah, I would probably say that's a case where someone should maybe just be like, that's interesting, but I don't really know until I've got something that I can actually test and make predictions from in sort of controlled settings.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with that. Again, it's to me, it's not really trying to come up with an explanation of the nitty-gritty. It's just a thing that happens, apparently, right? If you just take it as true, it's a thing that happens. It's crazy. It evidences that there's something beyond just the physical, at least as far as we understand it. And again, you can deviate this and say, like, look, what does string theory say? We have 11, 15 dimensions, something along those lines.
Oh, I don't believe in string
Those
theory.
all exist within the physical, within the time space, right? So that something can move beyond the 4 dimensions we are physically capable of acknowledging. And then the string theory dimensions are still part of this time space we find ourselves in. Then is that 5th or 6th dimension in string theory something that some parts of the brain can access? I mean, you can go that way and just kind of still stay. I'm arguing against myself. I realize this, but yeah. But I'm just saying that it's like it's to me, it's better to be curious about this stuff and kind of see where it leads than it is to try to explain everything away within the confines of our preconceptions.
I agree. I think a healthy curiosity. I think that saying "I don't know" is actually a part of like a healthy curiosity, right? Because it kind of stops you from.
100%.
Yes, it'll stop you from prematurely like landing on something, and it leaves open that door of, this is like, I'm not really satisfied with understanding this. This is weird. I want to kind of get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I'm very curious about people who disagree with me on just like things that I think are ridiculous, like flat Earth, right? First of all, I do dismiss it out of hand, but I don't want to just come off it and say like, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows the Earth is globe, blah, blah, blah. But I will say, okay, it is very interesting to me that you believe this. Tell me why you believe it. Right. And dive into it. And I'll go with that. Maybe I get it from like listening to Art Bell for so long, because Art Bell was so good at just going with somebody would come on with some whack crackpot theory and story, and Art Bell would just walk down that path with him as if he believed every single thing they were saying. And it was just great. I think intellectually, just sort of like exercise that muscle. And then, obviously then you're like, yeah, but
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think it's interesting, maybe from like I don't know, like that. I don't mean this in a condescending way, but like from like a creative writing angle or something like that. I just wouldn't want to. Well, I have weird views of what scientists are doing. I do think of science as a sort of creative, anarchic process, and I think but I think it's sort of that those initial creative ways of exploring different options need to almost be very quickly and rigorously put down by the method as well. So that, like, the way I think of science is like you've got some kind of curious thing, and you want a whole bunch of people who are going to approach it from all these different angles, kind of like an evolutionary type approach or something, and then a whole bunch of them are going to die off, and the right one sort of finds maybe a set of a few sort of stories people are telling, find a way of doing a little bit more than a bunch of the more speculative ones or whatever. So I do think there's a role for creativity. I just think that there comes a time to sort of pay the bills kind of thing, and a lot of theories aren't then doing that when that time kind of comes up, and that's where the scientific process is sort of it is kind of like proving those things out.
well, yeah, as long as it's something that can be proven via testing and repeatability and the scientific method. But I think a lot of times stuff is like shoehorned into science that you can't repeat history, right? It's like science and history are different subjects for a reason, right? Yeah. So it's like, if it's something that can fit within the scientific process, then yes, I agree with you, right? There's certain things that's like, what was I just listening? I was listening to a flat earth thing yesterday, and someone was saying, it's like, look, we brought down these people to Antarctica to prove to them that there is a 24-hour sun, and like some of them went back and they're like, oh, okay, it's like we can't use that argument anymore. Or some of them stopped being flat earthers, and like the flat earthers were they turned on them like rabid dogs. It's like, no, look, it's like, no, you're part of the machine now, and blah blah blah. And it's like, look, we used science to prove the thing, right? Stop believing the thing. Yeah. But that doesn't qualify like everything. Like for example, the near-death experience stuff, or the out-of-body experience stuff. It's like, how do you test that via scientific method?
Yeah, I think, well, there's one study that I'm aware of that was pretty good at trying to do this, which is called like the DARE study, DARE. And they had like, I mean, obviously the problem is that it's difficult to predict who's going to produce a sort of out of.
The problem is you can't exactly just kill people to see if they'll.
And so what they did in their study design, they set up this study over a period of time in like a major hospitals that were having, like people going into cardiac arrest, because it's very common that when people go into like cardiac arrest, they have these sort of near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. And they kind of like pared down then, how many people had these types of experiences, and then they, for all of these, they were trying to control a bunch of factors about like, making sure they had records of all the things that happened and stuff. And I think there were very few interesting like cases that were considered interesting after you kind of like eliminated those details. I think there were still one or two from what I recall, but it's still possible, I think, to explain those cases in terms of, for example, the details are like, oh, the doctor came in when I was dead and he was wearing like blue or something, right? And it's like, well, it's possible after a traumatic event to sort of try and reconstruct with bits and bobs of images of that you might have had from before you were unconscious or something, to try to reconstruct, and then you'll get the color right because it's this kind of like vague blur of what happened, but you did actually see someone in that color, or or maybe the details being added in retrospectively after you came around and saw people. So I think there's still ways of explaining, and then the question becomes, what's more kind of probable from your point of view, like something like that, even if it seems a little bit weird, or that like their soul left their body and has an ability to see, and even which I think is like maybe quite a bit weirder than the other one, even if it doesn't seem very satisfying as an explanation.
Oh, snap. All right. Well, I try to keep this show to an hour.
Yeah, no worries.
This was a lot of fun, though. This wasn't even an argument. This was just a
yeah. I'm not
but do me a favor and check out the I know it's a lot. It's kind of a lot of homework, but the telepathy tapes, they're on YouTube. And just tell me if you think this is just wackadoo stuff, or if it's just they find a lot of great actors, because it's very, very interesting at the very least.
Yeah, I'll have a look.
Right on. Well, Nathan, thanks for coming on, man. That was fun.
Yeah, stay safe in California. But remember, if they challenge the Constitution, that's when it's your.
What's your channel? Let's drop your channel.
Digital Gnosis. So I'll put Digital Gnosis. There it is.
Digital Gnosis. All right, cool. We'll check that out. Thanks Nathan.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks everybody for being here. God bless you all. We'll see you on the next exciting episode of Cross Examinations.